Hi everyone, welcome to a Monday market update. I'm going to start today on something called open interest. Now, when we saw the rise up to $30,000, we saw a recent bump in open interest. Now, open interest refers to futures markets, open contracts. So when people open long and short positions on the market, so betting that it will go higher and lower, we see that open interest begins to skyrocket. We also saw that some exchanges like Binance, retail exchanges and whatnot, saw a bit of a surge in open interest. So there were a lot of people at 30,000 starting to get a bit of FOMO, thinking we're going to go to 40, 50,000, or at least in the short term go to 32, 35. And so a lot of these open interests were opened. Now, when you do see, and this is a reasonably good gauge if you're relatively new to this space, and if you've done our course, if you haven't, that's fine. But we're always looking for ways that we can try and get in front of these sort of events in the markets where we have a bit of a sell-off. And if you're seeing a confluence of indicators on the technical side, and also through either on-chain or something like I'm pointing out here through derivatives, is you start to layer on different things to give you the signal through the noise. And if you're looking at a range high resistance, you can't get much bigger than 30,000 if you're looking from a span between 20 and 30,000. So range high resistance at 30. Now, we couldn't quite break through. We got a few ticks above for a little while, but there was no serious move through or no serious closes above it. Range high resistance, we also saw open interest start to skyrocket. And once we had the fall away, we saw a lot of those futures contracts. So a lot of those people that started to FOMO in, thinking we're going to go higher, betting with leverage, that got absolutely wiped. And we see down here, it almost had a 20% flush out from there to there. So once we're up here and all the way back down there, this, sell-off in Bitcoin, I think it was about 14%. We saw that open interest got wiped by about 20%. So when we are looking for moments where Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all that can start to organically move up again in the trend that it was on previously, or just recover, we need to see that momentum indicators start resetting on your charts. You better see it through RSI, stock RSI, things like that. But also that derivatives markets, they tend to need to have a flush out. And this is the start of what looks pretty promising for Bitcoin at about 27,000. So we're back up to 27,700 now. So this looks reasonably promising for a little rally by Bitcoin back to these previous support resistance levels that are now turned as resistance. So if we see here now above, Bitcoin's trying to break out of this lower area and start to create a new trend higher. But what I just mentioned there, we're going to see these areas above now act as resistance overhead. So there's going to be a bit of a hard time for Bitcoin as it starts to roll back higher. So it's very logical to assume that we're going to see something like this happen. And if we're going to see new lows, it's going to happen through here once it's done up here and run into a bit of headway through that way. But yeah, very interesting situation for Bitcoin finds itself in. We've had a rising channel drawn for a little while. You to see how well it adhered to that pattern. And once it deviates, once it breaks through either side and closes beneath it in a really solid way, which it did, and it loses the key moving average. I think it lost the 21 on the daily to up here, just fell through. And we had these boxes painted last week. If you watch some of our videos and our Talking Crypto Thinking Rich, which we posted, that's normally for a mastermind group, so make sure you watch that. We posted on Friday last week. But you see we have these boxes drawn because they're serious areas of value that investors are going to find. And we actually just moved into the top box level at about 27,000. We haven't got down to this. I want to say this is the uber buy area that everyone wants. And that's kind of what I'm going to highlight today, that, when the Bitcoin market is in an uptrend and it's looking to get more bullish as time goes on, it rarely gives retail participants and people that are watching the market and potentially that have lost and rather hadn't found the entries that they wanted lower. Think of when we're at 15K, the 12K crowd, they're all saying, oh, I'm going to buy Bitcoins at 12K. And they're at 20K, they're saying they're going to buy it, 15K, but don't. That kind of crowd, they're all waiting for that 25,000 re-entry point on the 200-week moving average. And let me just go up and show you where that is so you can see it overlaid on the chart. It's a very, very important level. 200-week moving average is huge for Bitcoin. So let's just have a look at it. It is the red line. Let me just zoom in. And it's confluent with that box on the lower half. And it's kind of why I've drawn it there to be so specific. So there you go. So if we come back and hit that on the nose, then most people win. So what's that? 25,800, that kind of range. So yeah, that's kind of how we see it, guys. And I mean, the weekly chart, the weekly momentum indicators are trying to cool off here, which is great. If we just go on to the daily, see what we can see there in terms of momentum. So stock RSI is reset. So stock RSI is essentially an indicator on an indicator, the RSI. You see the RSI is trying to snake back up. Stock RSI is reset. So a lot of things starting to shape up really good for a little bit of a rally here, you know, back up to maybe the 21 at 28,000. I think, sorry, 28,800. I think 28,000 is probably the logical next place, and then we're going to have to reevaluate and see what happens there. But whenever we breach the 21 moving average on the daily up here, see that blue line, we tend to gravitate back towards the 50, and we've done that. So a lot of things pointing in that direction, but there's no reason to get uber bullish here other than a rally up. We're just going to have to evaluate what happens in this region, and here is, that's absolutely a logical thing for Bitcoin to do, and probably come back and test, you know, 27,000 at the very least, and whether we make a new local low up here, that's absolutely up for debate. So in the short term, yep, we're going to see what happens when we start to come up here and retest these areas. And if we lose 2,700, then, you know, these lower levels are absolutely in the cards, and hopefully we find a bottom here above 25,000. If we don't, if we go below 25,000, that will send a, you know, scare right through the market. We'll probably go low 20,000s, but that feels unlikely based on what I'm saying and the strength that we've seen above and around 25,000, how crucial that support level is. So yeah, let's roll with that. Ethereum looks pretty good to me if I'm looking at an area for re-entry, and there's a lot of support underneath where we are at the moment. You know, the 50, you've got volume support. You see all these wicks, wick. You know, it was taking forever and a day to get above this level, and it finally did. And then it, you know, came back down for retest of support. Did it again here, support. So this green box here is imperative that Ethereum does not lose it. From here, again, it looks like a really nice spot to see Ethereum, you know, break back up and go back to 2,000 from here. See if that does happen. But if it doesn't, you know, something more like that, come down and test the 50, you know, maybe wick into these areas, 1750, that sort of thing. But, you know, the momentum indicators are looking okay in terms of, you know, the RSI is in the middle zone. The stock RSI looks like it's fully reset. Momentum trailing away. That's not so important in this sense. It generally gives us an idea of the overall trend and where things are heading, and the momentum of buyers and sellers. So there's multiple momentum indicators you can layer on top, and we go into more depth throughout the course and in the advanced group. But let's get rid of that for now. Apart from that, Ethereum looks, you know, okay based on all the things I've just said. But yeah, uber support down here at 1,700, give or take. You can see here, wick. So this is a tremendous area of support through there. So it's really about finding where the bleeding stops, and, you know, making educated guesses on where that support level is. So looking at all that for mine, that's where you want to have a look, and just visually, let's put that on the chart. So I've got that in the box area, but you can see what I mean there, and also that next level there. So yeah, that's exactly where you want to be looking in terms of strength and weakness of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, it does feel like most major markets are a bit on edge as we head into May because of the May the 4th Federal Reserve rate rise decision. And the DXY really tells you everything you need to know about that and where markets are heading, in my view, because the DXY is a representative of what the Fed does. And if the Fed raises the interest rates another 0.25, let's say, which seems pretty likely according to the futures markets, then the dollar is going to surge. And if the dollar surges, it's likely that Bitcoin, stocks, etc., go down, because that's the denominator we value those assets in. So if we look here, there was a clear, well, it's minor, but it was, in my eyes, it's reasonably clear on the daily. There was a bullish divergence for the dollar to go higher. So we can see here that price actually went marginally lower there, but the RSI actually went higher. So that means momentum is gaining while the price was lowering. So the bulls are actually getting stronger, and price is being sold into that, and it's weakening and weakening and weakening. Eventually the bulls take over, and this should explode to the upside. When I say explode, I'm expecting, you know, 103, maybe 105, but that seems very, very logical, 103. So there are headwinds about crypto at the moment that I'm feeling. So very much in the short term, the sense is that you know, Bitcoin and crypto should have a short-term rally for the next maybe 2 days up to around about that 28,000, low 28,000s, and then we should see things contract again as we head into the Federal Reserve May the 4th, and after that we'll have to reevaluate when the data comes through. So hope you've all enjoyed this episode, guys. We'll catch you again for our next one. Bye.